We recently looked at the best NBA player from every physical category. Well, the only way to one-up that is to look at the best starting 5 from each. So based on their natural positions, we're going to find one player for each category and see what we come up with. Then at the end of the video, we'll see which category gave us the best overall lineup, so stay tuned till the end. And our first category is weight, and this one was pretty hard to come up with. But we have a 5 of Ben Simmons, Joe Johnson, LeBron James, Glenn Davis, and Oliver Miller. I know all of you might have expected James Harden at shooting guard, and I don't know what he's at in this picture, but overall Joe Johnson had him beat. And surprisingly, only the front court of this team was actually out of shape, because Ben Simmons was a freak of nature athletically, not on the court because he doesn't play. Joe Johnson was just a big dude, and LeBron James has always been a freak given his size and athleticism. Now overall, this wouldn't be a good team though. Only one true shooter in Joe Johnson. Besides him, LeBron became a pretty decent shooter, but everyone else on the team physically can't shoot. Plus, Oliver Miller and Glenn Davis are both only 6'9", so they'd be playing very small, but at the same time, very big. The backcourt on the team I could deal with, but the front court just really takes them in the wrong direction. Now, Shaq was the second heaviest player in NBA history, so if they would have gotten him instead of Miller, this would have been a very different conversation. And speaking of a very different conversation, that's what the next category is when we look at the lightest NBA starting 5 of all time. So given these guys all played their natural positions, here's the lightest possible lineup imaginable. We have Spud Webb at 133 pounds, Allen Iverson at 165, Will Barton at 181, Chris Boucher coming in at 210 pounds, and Manute Bol weighing 200 pounds. Now, Spud Webb being only 133 pounds, of course, comes from him being only 5'7", but even still, that's tiny for a man that height. Same with Allen Iverson at 165. It's no wonder why those guys could dunk like they could, because they didn't have that much weight to bring off the ground. For small forwards, I know some people were probably expecting Kevin Durant, but he's 240 pounds, which is 60 pounds heavier than Will Barton, who really is just skin and bones. To be 6'5" and weigh under 200 pounds is wild. Chris Boucher was the lightest power forward I could find by far, and it helped that he was only 6'9", while 7'7" Manute Bol was even lighter than that at 200 because, well, he was paper thin. Overall, this lineup wouldn't be terrible thanks to the star power of AI, and weight's something that's usually not ever really brought up in an NBA game, but given how small this team would be as a whole, I know they would just get bullied all around the court for being undersized, especially Spud Webb. And to combine him in the backcourt with a 6-foot Allen Iverson doesn't help a ton. So overall, not a terrific 5. The fastest ever NBA starting 5 is a different story though, because that one would be made up of Russell Westbrook, Allen Iverson, LeBron James, Giannis, and Wilt Chamberlain. And the speed this team would have would make a huge difference and make them one of the most dangerous teams ever assembled. Russ has made a case for the fastest NBA player of all time. AI was the quickest I could think of at shooting guard, and it made sense. LeBron I think was an easy choice, and so was Giannis. He's the first real true power forward to have speed like he does. KG was the only other one that came close, and I still think he's no match for how quick Giannis gets from end to end on a fast break. While Wilt Chamberlain ran track and had some all-time great times considering his size. And on the court, again, we wouldn't have much shooting at all, because everyone on this team at one point or another has been known to be a flat-out bad shooter. Again, LeBron's got a lot better with age, he's not bad now, but overall, this is still definitely the best lineup we've seen so far. The strongest starting lineup was a little harder to come up with, because for most cases, there's not always a ton of evidence on the court to show how strong a player really is, and it wasn't always clear, so I did some guessing. For point guard, I came up with Eric Bledsoe, because I remember hearing a few times a couple years back about players saying how insanely physically strong he was, and besides him, most point guards really aren't that big in size. For shooting guards, I'll be honest, I had nothing. I didn't know who to pick, so we'll just let MJ slide in this spot. Small forward, I could still be wrong, but I'd say LeBron James is probably the strongest. Then for big men, it got a little easier. Karl Malone was a creep, but built like a tank, and there's also way too many Wilt Chamberlain stories to believe that any other center was actually stronger. Don't forget about just how much talent there is here too though. You have 2 of the best players of all time at their positions, and 2 others that are at least in the top 3. I don't necessarily think their games would complement each other's perfectly, but with this much talent, they'd still dominate. Now, the tallest NBA team ever assembled would cause some problems, and this is something I would definitely pay money to see. How would a team of giants really do? Would the other team really be able to still get shots off while being outsized at every position? It just makes you think. For the squad though, we have 6'10" Ben Simmons at point guard, Mike Dunleavy Jr., who was 6'9" at shooting guard, Kevin Durant, who stands 6'10", Ralph Sampson, who was a power forward and was 7'4", and Manute Bol, who of course was 7'7". So we have pretty much a full roster of guys at least 6'10", and really only the 2 big men would slow this team down. So they wouldn't get a ton of fast breaks, and with Simmons, Sampson, and Manute on the floor, the spacing isn't all there. But with KD being the star of this team and Dunleavy being able to knock down threes, it could work. I just really want to see this team actually play an NBA game together. But I'm not so excited about the shortest NBA starting 5 ever, because in it we have 5'3" Muggsy Bogues, 6' Allen Iverson, Norman Powell, who occasionally plays small forward and is only 6'3", Charles Barkley, who was always listed at 6'6" but was really 6'4", and Chuck Hayes at 6'6". So their tallest player is their center, who is the same height as most shooting guards. These guys may be a little quicker than on other teams, but just because they're short doesn't mean they're super fast. Because we already went through the fastest lineups and none of these guys aside from AI were on it. So really their lack of height is just a major disadvantage. They can't get rebounds, they'd get bullied on defense, and I don't care how many Hall of Famers they have, if a team came into the NBA in any era and played this squad, for one, they'd probably get laughed at, and two, they'd get whooped. Okay, we looked at players' height in terms of vertically, but what about the other way in their wingspans? Well, the starting five is gonna surprise you, and it might not be 100% accurate, but I did the best I could at finding the player from each position with the biggest wingspan. So at point guard, we have Reggie Jackson, who has a surprising 7-foot wingspan, Taylor Horton Tucker with a 7'4" wingspan, KD's who's a 7'5", Bol at 7 foot 8 inches, and his father's who was 8 foot 6 inches long. So let's just break this down. 6'2" Reggie Jackson has the same wingspan as 6'8" LeBron James. 6'4" Taylor Horton Tucker has a bigger wingspan than Giannis. I don't even know how that's real life. But Kevin Durant's is even bigger, and well, that just makes sense. Well, so do both of the Bulls' wingspans. But just to point out, like I said, Manute Bol's wingspan is 8'6", which is what a normal, actually proportionate 8'2" man should have. So yeah, all that's just really weird. As a whole though, I'm just gonna say this team would not be good. Reggie Jackson's a great role player, but THT and Bol haven't found their ways, while Manute's game is really limited. I think it'd be nice to see them all stretched out and just covering every inch of the floor on defense, and well, if that works, maybe this team would be successful. But as for their actual skill level, I'm not buying it. The most athletic starting five of all time was an easy one to come up with Russell Westbrook, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Giannis, and Wilt Chamberlain. And honestly, I'll just say this is one of the best lineups so far, and really doesn't need any explanation for anything. With the all-time slowest lineups, this is another one that's just at a flat-out disadvantage. Andre Miller, Joe Ingles, Kyle Anderson, Dirk Nowitzki, and Boban. And I did the best I could in picking who I thought should be here. It's hard to argue against Andre Miller though, who's always been one of the least athletic players in league history. With Joe Ingles, it was hard to find a shooting guard, but he definitely deserves to be here. Kyle Anderson has the slow-mo nickname for a reason. Dirk was always slower than most, and Boban is 7'3", so what do you expect? And altogether, it's Dirk Nowitzki as the star with a bunch of role players, so I mean, this isn't much more than what you would expect on an average NBA roster. Nothing too special, except for the fact that they would have no fast breaks and would get destroyed when anybody else ran one. And our last lineup is based on vertical leap and gives us Spud Webb with a 46-inch vert, Michael Jordan who's his 48, Andrew Wiggins with 44, Sean Kemp with a 41-inch vertical, and Wilt Chamberlain whose was reportedly 48 inches. It's hard to say how a team like this would play and how differently things would be just due to the fact that they could all jump out of the gym. I'm just assuming we'd see a lot of posters, a lot of blocked shots, and even more alley-oops. And the duo of Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan would already be unstoppable. But then you get to add on a supporting cast as solid as this. So we saw a lot of Wilt Chamberlain on this list and a lot of great lineups, but clearly there was none better than the athleticism starting five. To combine LeBron and Jordan would be good enough already, but then to add 3 more Hall of Famers to the mix, and it's over. And so is today's video.